Good morning, everybody. Happy Tuesday. We have an amazing show for everybody. Say extra amazing. Ryan is here, the bro show, first bro show of the locals era. It's great to see you, my friend. Thank you so much for joining us. Crystal is at, what is it? It's a 5th grade school event. That's all I know. Family comes first here over at Breaking Points. All right, let's go ahead and turn to my camera and let's see these topics. This is a very difficult part of the job. I really don't know how she does it. We're gonna talk about the political fallout here in Washington over those ICC arrest warrants issued for Israeli leaders and Hamas leaders, some major freak out by the Biden administration, by Prime Minister Netanyahu and others. Our own Ryan Grimm here was at the State Department briefing yesterday, going toe-to-toe with State Department spokesperson Matt Miller. That's gonna be interesting. We're gonna talk about the Trump trial. Trump star witness Michael Cohen admitting to stealing some $50,000 on the stand, arguably a worse crime than what Trump is actually being put on trial for. We're gonna talk about the debates, Donald Trump saying he wants a drug test for Joe Biden ahead of the debates. I would stipulate a drug test for all candidates who are involved, Ryan. We're gonna talk about the Congo. Luckily, we've got coup expert Ryan Grimm here. There is some wild stuff going on in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, a full-on coup attempt that failed, but it appears that some Americans were involved, maybe some 3-letter agencies. We'll get into that. And then Jerry Seinfeld going at it with some protesters at one of his most recent shows, making headlines. And finally, Bilal Hamoud. He was recently in a meeting with Secretary of State Anthony Blinken. We're going to hear from him about what was said in that meeting and some political fallout. But before we get to that, Ryan, thank you, by the way, for saying you told our audience they were going to be underwhelmed. I'm informed, and you could not be more wrong, my friend.
They were blown away, weren't they?
Yeah, they were blown away. Okay, so first of all, thank you to everybody for all of the excitement over the switch. We very, very much appreciate it. It's just amazing watching everybody's comments flood in on the locals page. So that's been awesome. We've gotten a lot of comments. We're very proud of the boomers, our boomer audience. By the way, you guys keep saying this is seamless. I'm amazed by your ability.
You want a switch to be underwhelming.
That's what you, yeah, you're right. You don't want
it to just move like this.
Yes,
and this,
you want it to be
one day to another.
Seamless transition. So as we continue to remind everybody, you have an email in your inbox, which will give you your login credentials. You just literally click in, sign in, and you'll get access to your premium subscription over at Locals. We know that there were some technical issues yesterday, but it's going to be a lot smoother today. Just bear with us. You know, it is obviously a new thing. Just continue to check your inbox for the links to the show. For any issues, big and small, can't access my account, something's not working properly, how do I connect X, Y, or Z? support@locals.com. We have concierge service set up for all of you. Any issues, like we said, big or small, there's going to be a link down in the description. Just make sure if you have any questions about your account. Now,
and I did it.
Okay,
and I am in spirit a boomer.
Yeah.
And it took me like 30 seconds.
Yeah, so Crystal's parents both did it. They're both in their late 70s and 80s. My mom is in her 60s, and she said it took her like 15 seconds. So we're actually really, really pleased with how easy this has been.
Yeah.
The app is really amazing.
Nice. Now, the video quality is really good.
The video quality is fantastic. That's one of the major things. So, okay, now the last question we continue to get, just to clear up any confusion. Can I still watch or listen to the show the way that I always did? Yes, the answer is yes. That is if you are a premium subscriber. Check your inbox.
But you have to switch your account.
Yeah, you just have to switch your account. That's it. So, like, can I still listen to the show on Spotify or Apple via my premium thing? Yes, absolutely. Don't worry about it. There's going to be instructions in your email. All of that is being sorted out. Same with the full show. Same with everything. Just check your email. Everything here is additive. Yep. There's nothing that is being subtracted.
Everything up here stays the same.
Exactly.
Just moving from one back end to another.
Bingo.
And so if you're over here, you just got to move over here, and it's still going to come up to all these other.
Up. It's like a flower. We're in gardening season here. We're adding new branches to the show. We've got some exclusive content that will drop soon in Rumble. You guys can check that out. We have a Rumble channel. First video on Rumble got over 100,000 views, so we're pretty happy about that. We're only adding things here, and no subsequent drop in our YouTube views either. Now, this is very important. You have until the end of the week to switch your account over to Locals, or you're going to lose access to your premium features, and we don't want that to happen. So please, guys, just go ahead. We've had, I think, a pretty decent chunk already have done it in the first 24 hours, which thank you guys so much. You know, we were really worried about that. We have a week-long transition, so just go ahead and take care of it now so you don't have to worry about it anymore. All right, that's all the administrative stuff out of the way there, Ryan, and let's actually get started here with the ICC and the fallout. So President Joe Biden—
We got to give people a second to pause.
Oh, okay.
Pause.
All right, yeah, okay. Pause and then go handle it. Thank you.
Now we're back in.
See, you're even better at this than I am. Okay, now we're back here. We're doing the ICC. What are we doing? President Joe Biden speaking out very forcefully against the ICC arrest warrants issued against the Israeli leaders and Hamas leaders, but in particular, taking exception to the charges against Israeli leaders. Here's what he had to say.
Let me be clear. We reject the ICC's application for arrest warrants against Israeli leaders. Whatever these warrants may imply, there is no equivalence between Israel and Hamas. And it's clear Israel wants to do all it can to ensure civilian protection. But let me be clear. Contrary to allegations against Israel made by the International Court of Justice, what's happening is not genocide. We reject that. We will always stand with Israel and the threats against its security.
We will always stand with Israel and its threat against its security. That's pretty significant, Ryan, because if we can go to the next part, please. This was an official statement from President Biden immediately after the warrant was issued. Quote, the ICC prosecutor's application for arrest warrants against Israeli leaders is outrageous. Let me be clear. Whatever this prosecutor might imply, there is no equivalence, none, between Israel and Hamas. We will always stand with Israel against threats to its security. So this was the immediate reaction from President Biden, kind of reverting back to his original stance here on the conflict. What did you make of this, Ryan?
I mean, on the one hand, just rhetorically, the prosecutor's in a no-win situation. Like he tries to bring everybody in Hamas into the dock. And so they say, how dare you compare Hamas to Israel? Like if he doesn't charge Hamas,
right,
then they say, how dare you single out
Good point.
Israel? They've also been saying, we can talk about this more, that, well, the prosecutor's team was about to go to Israel. And he said that, the Israeli government said that they were going to cooperate, and you got to let the government play out. The Israeli government spent the last several weeks practically threatening war against the ICC. Like meeting with leaders in Washington and making public threats. From the second it looked like there was a chance there going to be arrest warrants, saying that if they did that, they would lobby for sanctions. They would not even let the family of people who worked for the ICC travel anywhere in the world. So the idea that this was a government that was just on the brink of cooperating with war crimes charges against Prime Minister Netanyahu is just laughable.
Got it. Well, we have actually a response from Prime Minister Netanyahu that we can show everybody here. Let's see it.
The outrageous decision by the ICC prosecutor, Karim Khan, to seek arrest warrants against the democratically elected leaders of Israel is a moral outrage of historic proportions. It will cast an everlasting mark of shame on the international court. Israel is waging a just war against Hamas, a genocidal terrorist organization that perpetrated the worst attack on the Jewish people since the Holocaust. Hamas massacred 1,200 Jews, raped Jewish women, burned Jewish babies, took hundreds hostage. Now, in the face of these horrors, Mr. Khan creates a twisted and false moral equivalence between the leaders of Israel and the henchmen of Hamas. This is like creating a moral equivalence after September 11th between President Bush and Osama bin Laden, or during World War II between FDR and Hitler. What a travesty of justice, what a disgrace. The prosecutor's absurd charges against me and Israel's defense minister are merely an attempt to deny Israel the basic right of self-defense. And I assure you of one thing, this attempt will utterly fail. 80 years ago, the Jewish people were totally defenseless against our enemies. Those days are over. Now the Jewish people have a state, and we have an army to defend our state. Notwithstanding the blood libels Mr. Khan has leveled, Israel will continue to wage this war in full compliance with international law. We will continue to take unprecedented measures to get innocent civilians out of harm's way and to ensure that humanitarian assistance reaches those in need in Gaza. Mr. Khan also sets a dangerous precedent that undermines every democracy's right to defend itself against terror organizations and aggressors. The ICC has no jurisdiction over Israel, and Mr. Khan's actions will not stop us from waging our just war against Hamas. But Mr. Khan's abuse of this authority will turn the ICC into nothing more than a farce. He's doing something else. He is callously pouring gasoline on the fires of anti-Semitism that are raging across the world. Through this incendiary decision, Mr. Khan takes his place among the great anti-Semites in modern times. He now stands alongside those infamous German judges who donned their robes and upheld laws that denied the Jewish people their most basic rights and enabled the Nazis to perpetrate the worst crime in history. 2 weeks ago, on Holocaust Memorial Day, I pledged this: no amount of pressure and no decision in any international forum will prevent Israel from defending itself against those who seek our destruction. To all the enemies of Israel, including their collaborators in The Hague, I renew that pledge today. Israel will wage our war against Hamas until that war is won.
So there you go. Moral equivalence, that appears to be the line that they're going with. Against Israel's right to self-defense is what they are saying. He is, and yeah, I want to give you the chance to give us some breakdown. Go ahead.
I mean, it's a logical fallacy at play here. United States getting attacked by Japan or the United States getting attacked by Al-Qaeda would not be a get-out-of-jail-free card for its war criminals. You're still responsible for what you do in response. I don't think anybody would even claim, like, oh, well, they flew the planes into the towers, they killed 3,000 Americans, therefore, their rules no longer apply to you.
Right.
That's the opposite of the point.
And we did actually act that way for a while, and it was a disaster.
Right, yeah, and we did it. Yeah, it was called Abu Ghraib. It was called the black sites where torture was going around, waterboarding, Guantanamo. And so our argument would be, and is, like, we do not support. It's funny. We wanted to build up this kind of rules-based international order post-World War II. This is part of that idea, but we only want it to apply, to our adversaries. It looks like, and so Khan in the interview that you guys talked about yesterday on the show, he said that he heard from an elected American leader that, hey, the ICC is for Africa and thugs like Putin. Now, we also know that Lindsey Graham met with Khan recently. I'm not saying that Lindsey Graham who said that, but people, I mean, come on.
How good is it that it's legitimate?
And I bet he would admit
talking
that it was
about Russia, a nuclear-armed power and great power in its own right. And I don't mean like comparable to the United States. Just it's a great power. It's a big nation. It has a lot of land mass, a big military, and it's got nukes. You're a great power, in my opinion. Well, then it's fine. And not only fine, it's good. We laud those decisions. You have a great point that you bring up with the State Department that we'll get to later. But I want to tug on this thread because we are watching the entire bipartisan machine here in Washington move to Israel's defense. Let's put this up there, for example, on the screen. There's a statement from Mike Johnson, Speaker of the House, immediately afterwards. He says the ICC has no authority over Israel or the United States. Today's baseless and illegitimate decision should face global condemnation. International bureaucrats cannot be allowed to use lawfare to usurp the authority of democratic nations that maintain the rule of law. Israel is fighting a just war for survival. The ICC is attempting to equate Israeli officials to the terrorists who perpetrated the October 7th massacre. It is clear ICC's decision has been advanced due to the Biden administration's pressure campaign against Israel and its outlandish State Department investigation. So that is an interesting little turn, isn't it? Because here we have, on the one hand, President Biden, the Secretary of State Anthony Blinken, and Mike Johnson all decrying it. But in this case, we have Mike Johnson who says it's actually Biden's fault for doing this. Let's take some twisted logic. There's something so naked about the Israelis that I can't just help but admire. Let's put this up there on the screen. They openly just tweet this out. Live updates. Israeli Foreign Minister Katz asks AIPAC leaders to work with Congress against the ICC decision. So, Ryan, since you're more read in than I am, just explain what steps remain that Congress could take. And also, this ICC thing, it's not a done deal yet, per se. So what actions remain in terms of levers of power for the United States and for its Congress to try and to push back against this decision?
So I think we're going to absolutely see a resolution. Those are the easiest things.
Right, but that's not binding.
Congress can do. It'll be a temper tantrum resolution.
Right.
And there'll be a contest to see who can come up with the wildest adjectives to this is the end of the free world. But yes, sanctions going directly after the family of the prosecutor, targeting any institutions. Like basically, think about BDS and the way that the Palestinian grassroots organization has urged the world to boycott, divest, and sanction Israel. Like the U.S. is going to try to do the same thing to the ICC. Like any lever that they have, they're going to push on. Now, pessimists from the Palestinian side that I've been speaking to have said they think within a couple months there will be so much pressure that you'll just see this dropped. That the application for the arrest warrant will not turn into an actual arrest warrant.
Okay.
And but then the Hamas ones will go forward because there will be so much pressure. Right. And the idea that Lindsey Graham or whoever was in that meeting was saying that this is for Africa and thugs like Putin will be reinstated, will be restored.
Okay, I understand. Well, that's the interesting question, though, in terms of the Hamas thing, because part of the U.S. response has been that they don't have jurisdiction over any of what's happening here. We would be remiss if we didn't show what all of the responses from our own representatives in Washington. Let's put this up there on the screen. Brian Mast, you'll remember him for wearing an IDF uniform, even though he's not a Jew, in the United States Congress. He says, America doesn't recognize the International Criminal Court, but the court sure as hell will recognize what happens when you target our allies. Next, we have a response, very long one from Lindsey Graham. He says, this outrageous decision is truly a slap in the face to the independent judiciary in Israel, renowned for their independence. We must not forget, as a nation, the ICC threatened to bring actions against American forces in Afghanistan, and we are a non-member. I will be issuing a detailed statement. However, these are my initial thoughts. Most importantly, I want the world to know that I, along with Republican Democrat colleagues, engaged the ICC on this issue weeks ago. We were told there would be discussion with Israel before any actions were taken. We stressed the principle of complementarity, which should be applied in this case, which requires the ICC to let the nation in the question's legal system move first before any action is taken by the court. What do you make of that, Ryan? That might be the interesting objection that I've seen about this issue of complementarity. And then last but not least, by the way, Elise Stefanik, who was actually in Israel when this came out, tweeting, the ICC is an illegitimate court that advocates a peaceful nation protect its rights to exist with radical terror groups that commit genocide. Congress must pass my bill that will punish those in the ICC that made this baseless, undemocratic decision. But what do you, explain to Lindsey Graham.
Yeah, so the argument is that if a country has its own robust, non-corrupt justice system, then the international system recognizes that and allows the sovereignty of that system to play out. And so then it's just a judgment call. Like, do you think, does the prosecutor believe that there is any chance that an Israeli judicial system will investigate and prosecute war crimes by its leaders? He clearly made the call, no. He does not think that that is remotely possible. And I think the statements coming from the Israeli government would support that. Like, they have said that it is an anti-Semitic attack on the state of Israel to even remotely suggest that it is committing war crimes against the heinous Hamas terrorists. Like that, so if the entire idea of that is itself anti-Semitic, in his response, Netanyahu said, we are the most moral army in the world.
Yes.
Like that is the line that they've been using for decades. So if your stated position is that you are running the most moral army in the world, like in what world are you going to prosecute yourself for war crimes? And so the prosecutor just clearly came to the conclusion that the only avenue for accountability here was going to be through the ICC, that there was no chance.
You also see some of the political response institutionally inside Israel. Let's put this up there on the screen. Times of Israel reports outcry in Israel as the ICC prosecutors seek warrants against Netanyahu and Gallant. The foreign ministry is to establish a command center to counter-move. Benny Gantz, who is the opposition leader, says that the decision is a deep distortion of justice, and the ex-Israeli prime minister calls on other countries to cut their funding for the court. So the foreign minister of the government says this is an unrestrained direct attack, actually on the victims of October 7th, because it draws moral equivalence, that the entire institution is kind of moving to protect both Netanyahu and to Yoav Gallant. So this does demonstrate to us something that we try and highlight. Benny Gantz may be the opposition leader. He doesn't like Netanyahu, right? Gallant, he also doesn't particularly like Netanyahu. That does not mean that they disagree really with the prosecution of the war. And in fact, they mostly agree with it. They would probably just finesse and do things a little bit differently to maintain Israel's international isolation. So yesterday, Crystal and I were talking about this. I said there's really only two ways that this plays out. A, it actually leads to a reduction of the rules-based international system as for whatever is left of it, because it's just, obviously it's a farce. It's just one of those where, yeah, it does only exist for Russians and for Africans because those are the people that the West doesn't like.
Right.
The other way is that this is a very convenient way for the Israelis to just shove Bibi out, and they're like, listen, man, you're causing us too much trouble. We'll put Benny Gantz in there, and he'll talk to Biden more. Maybe we'll let in 10% more aid trucks, and we'll just move on with our lives. What do you think is going to happen?
But apparently Netanyahu has a say in that, and he's been pressured recently to come up with a plan by Gantz and others to say, like, look, come up with and it's a kind of funny demand. Like, the demand is that you come up with a strategy for ending this war, and for what the war looks like after it's over. Like, that's it. Just tell us where this is headed. And for him to say no, just to that demand, that no, because his idea is we're going to continue just to prosecute this war. Like, this is the day after. His answer is we're just going to continue, because now you've seen they're estimating about 800,000 people have left Rafah and moved to Deir Balit and Khan Yunis and elsewhere around the Gaza Strip. Maybe next they go there. Like, just chase them all over the place for endlessly, because the second that the war ends, that then the kind of political reckoning for Netanyahu is on the horizon.
I was going to say, it's not just political reckoning. It's like he doesn't want to commit to either. He's already said there's going to be no Palestinian state. He literally said that. So it's like, okay, well, now what? And then that's the basis of our negotiation from the United States. Remember, this is just the U.S., not just the UN and the rest of the nations. And I left out all the Arab powers, who apparently, that's their number one demand. They're like, sure, we'll work with you, but it has to have
he wants them to pay for it.
State. He wants them to pay for it. I mean, that's even fine if they even get a state. But their question is like, fine, but you have to have the state. So a lot of irreconcilable differences. All we can say is that the U.S., basically American foreign policy right now exists to advance the interests of Israel. I think there's no other way for me to say it.
Yeah,
I'll put Ukraine in there too, but that's it.
Mac flagged this morning, this bill from two Republicans, Max Miller and another guy. I think Michael Tracy posted this on Twitter, where it says, in general, for purposes of this chapter, to the extent practicable, the service of a citizen of the United States in the Israeli Defense Forces shall be treated in the same manner as service in the uniformed services. It's actually called Israel Defense Forces, so maybe that won't count. You could sue and be like, they spelled it wrong.
What does that even mean?
It means that if you become a foreign fighter, you've been watching YouTube, you've been radicalized, TikTok has convinced you to go.
You join you make Aliyah, you do your IDF service.
That if you get wounded, or if you need like time toward a pension, that it could count. But yes, let's say you get wounded over there, that you would come home and you would have veterans benefits.
Right, that makes sense. Right, that totally makes sense. It's just that it only says, when you open your passport. Anybody's got their passport, do this. I actually went and I rechecked it just to make sure that I was correct. It says it right there. It says if you serve in a foreign military, you're going to lose your passport. You're going to lose your citizenship. This is the only country in the world where we allow that. You can't even fight for the French Foreign Legion as an American.
Not only do you not, and under this law, not only would you not lose your citizenship.
We're going to pay for it.
We would pay for that.
Right, that makes sense. That's exactly why we pay all the taxes, right? Look, I mean, you don't have to like Palestine or Israel or whatever, not to just be like, what? Like, can our foreign policy advance my interests as a citizen? Is that so difficult? Why are we if they're coming after our soldiers, that's a different story, okay? All right, fine, then maybe. But all of this, it's just nonsense. It's like the entire thing is geared towards protecting them. And then this also shows the total incoherence of the Biden administration. We want more aid to go into Gaza, so we'll build them a pier. Oh, the pier's only, we just looked at the stats this morning, 10% of the aid that could have been let in via a truck. So actually, it's leading to net probably less than what's getting in. We're footing the bill.
Everything got looted yesterday.
Yeah, everything got looted yesterday. Oh, congratulations, right? And the Israelis are inspecting it or whatever the hell all of that means. Palestinians. The entire thing is a farce, you know? And it's like, oh, I'm gonna withhold weapons, but I'm gonna send weapons. I would respect him more if he just picked a side at this point, which he has, but rhetorically, he just won't be honest about it. Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show, ad-free, and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show, help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com.